Welcome back to Crime, Mystery, and Mayhem. Now, before I get started on this story today, I want to apologize to all my subscribers for my absence the past 3 weeks. Again, I know I uploaded a video about 3 weeks ago when the incident happened, but I still wanted to apologize again and just let you guys know that I was putting together my children's tent. And behind their tent, there we have a wooden fence where these weeds, or so I thought were weeds, were coming through the cracks. I went to pulling at them, but at the same time, it's hot outside, so I'm sweating, and I go to wipe the sweat off my forehead and my eyes, and yes, everything just started tingling. I started feeling like I had like a bunch of little people just running around on my face, and then a few days later, my eyes started getting like really raw underneath, and the majority of the skin was just off. It was just nasty. I had to Benadryl and Neosporin and go to the doctor and get drops, and every 2 seconds I was literally dabbing my eyes with napkins and paper towels. So it wasn't a pleasant sight. But moving forward, so today's true story is a story that happened about 2 years ago. It's also known as the Cinderella story. It's about this little baby girl named Emani Moss. Emani Moss was born in April of 2003 to her father, Emani Moss. Emani Moss was a single father. It was said that after Emani was about 2 years old, the mom, she just up and left. She just decided that she didn't want to take care of the little girl anymore. She, gave the baby up to her dad. So, Emani, he was doing perfectly fine with this baby girl. They would go to church together. He would have his baby girl around his family, and she would have friends. She was doing great in school. And then one day, while he was at like this church group, it's like a church group, everyone in the congregation comes and they have fellowship and they sit down and they enjoy a meal together. He will always have an eye for this woman, Tiffany. She would come in and batting her eyes at him, but kind of being conservative. They are at a church picnic now. So, she comes in, she bats her eyes at him, and she's just like, I like what I see, but I'm going to pay hard to get. So she's playing hard to get, and, he would see her from time to time. Sometimes he wouldn't see her, but sources say that she was in school to be like some type of teacher or something, or she was getting her degree, so she was, kudos to her. But, so sometimes he would see her and sometimes he wouldn't. And then, one day she was brave enough. The majority of the time it's the guy who's approaching the woman now, asking them on a date. But she stepped to him and was like, look, I like what I see. I want to go on dates. I want to do something other than this church stuff. I want to go on actual real life dates. I want to be a stepmother to your daughter. So at the time, Amon, he's like agreeing to this. He thinks she's fine and stuff like that. They go out on a couple dates, and not even a month or two later, he proposes to her. Then after that, shortly after that, 6 months, 7 months, they were married. So instantly they move in together. Amon, he has Tiffany around his family, his friends. Everyone is seeing how well she's being, a good stepmother to Emani. Emani's not having any complaints. But then, all of a sudden, Emani, she wasn't herself anymore. It's like she would run a lot slower. She would look down. She started getting these bags under her eyes. Like she was depressed. Like we all know a happy child when we see one. And we can also tell a child who's suppressing anger and depression and emotions too. So people were starting to see these things, but no one really got in their business. They just suspected, well, maybe she misses her mom, or she's a growing girl, maybe, but that wasn't the case. So time goes by, and Amon and Tiffany, they give birth to their first child that they have together, and this is a little boy named Tristan. So after Tristan is there, the family, they're under this roof together. Amon, he has a job, and Tiffany, she has a job as a preschool teacher. So, everyone's thinking, she must be good with kids, right? So one day, Amani goes to school, and she's rubbing her arms and she's rubbing her legs, and she's just like, kind of complaining, not wanting to sit still in her seat. And the teacher's just like, Amani, what's going on? You haven't been doing your homework, and your grades are going down. What's going on? You want to talk about it? And so she noticed that she looks down at what Amani's rubbing, and she noticed that Amani is rubbing a big welt on her arm. And so the teacher, she's just like, she's in panic mode. She's like, Amani, what happened to you? And Amani is like, well, my stepmom punished me because I didn't do my homework. And then so the teacher's like, she punished you? She was like, yeah, she hit me with the belt with the silver buckle. So when the teacher heard this, the teacher began to cry. Like, of course, she's got to be strong in front of this student, but I'm pretty sure, because if I would have heard it or saw those marks on that baby, I would have had to find a quiet spot to not say curse words and calm down for not wanting to put my hands on that stepmom. So CPS gets called, and the father gets called. Now he's at his job. He immediately gets notified by the police. Look, we have your wife in custody because your daughter is accusing her of beating her with this belt buckle. So the dad, he hurry up and he leave. He goes down there to the police station and he hears everything that's going on. I'm not really sure if he's shocked or surprised, because when I go farther off into this story, you'll understand why. And you become more and more upset with the father as well. But moving forward, so now they removed Amani from her father and her stepmother's home, and they move her into her grandmother's home, which is her dad's mom. Now, sources say that when Amani is there, she's happy, she's, playing with friends, she's eating. She looks like she's happy in the face. She has that really, that really bright child glow that every child has when they're being properly fed, properly loved and cared for and nurtured, and someone actually cares about their well-being and their spirituality. So kudos to you, Granny. Grannies wear capes, remember that. So she's with her grandmother, and in this time, for the 6-month span that she's with her grandmother, her dad and her stepmother, Tiffany, they're ordered to do like these parenting classes. And not just to mention that, when Tiffany went to court, when she got arrested for putting her hands on little Amani, they only gave her 5 years probation. They gave her 5 years probation and said that after she got done continuing with her classes, Amani gets to return home and live under the same roof as the person who violated her. Now, that is a great example as the system failing the children. So, not as well, remember, she's being failed from her parents. Her parents are failing her, but not just that, the system. So, this leaves her with absolutely zero protection. So now they complete their courses and everything, but by now, Tiffany, because she has this case on her record, when anytime you have some type of criminal record where it has to do with abuse or neglect of a child or anything like that, you cannot work with children. So her job as a preschool teacher went out of the window, which only means that Amon, the father, had to pick up an additional job. So this man was working well above what he needed to and still wasn't bringing in enough money. So he's going to work, coming home for like 30 minutes to an hour, maybe 2 if he's lucky, and has to go straight back to work. So he's not really paying attention to all of the things that is going on in his home, because he's at work the majority of the 24 hours a day. So, but the teachers and then their family, they will start to notice that Emani's, her shoulder blades were beginning to show. And, you know, it looked like she wasn't eating and she looked depressed. And the grandmother, she would see her. Sometimes she would see her. And other times she wouldn't. So it would have her kind of like afraid. Like, you know, what's going on with my grandbaby? I know this woman hasn't changed her ways. And not just that. If she changed her ways, I will be able to see my granddaughter a lot more. I never get the chance to see any of my grandchildren. So, you know, the grandmother, she's constantly on her son like, come on, just let Emani live with me. When she's with me, she's the happiest. I'm not sure why she doesn't want to go home with Tiffany. And the dad is like covering this for his wife. Tiffany isn't doing anything wrong. You can't believe Emani. Because Tiffany will literally tell her husband, which is Emani's dad, when you were at work, Emani ran away. She put boo-boo in her oatmeal. She wrote boo-boo on the wall. She was being bad and constantly going in the refrigerator for stuff. Not eating her food, just throwing it out, so I put a lock on the refrigerator. Just saying all this different stuff like all day while Emani would be at either one of his shifts. Now, Tiffany would constantly call him, not to tell him I love you, or the kids are doing good, or I read them books, or we went to the park today, or I did Emani's hair. None of that. It will always be something pertaining to Emani doing something out of the ordinary, or doing something for her to be able to get a punishment. Nothing about the other children, just Emani, Emani, Emani. It's like this woman really had it out for this baby girl. So Emani, he's just brushing it off like, okay, well, do what you have to do. I guess he's thinking, well, you are her stepmom. He's probably thinking she has this under control, fix the situation. But I'm pretty sure in his mind, he's probably like, I wonder why Imani's acting like this. But wake up, it's not Emani, it's this monster that you brought into your home around you and your baby girl. She wasn't having these problems before, but all of a sudden you married this lady, and all of a sudden she's not eating. And not to mention that they go to take this baby girl. Go to take this baby girl to the doctor, and the doctor says that it doesn't look like anything is going on. So this baby then been to court because she was beat on. She's been to the doctor. She's been around family members, and she's been around neighbors who have seen all of these things and these changes in her life, and no one is doing anything. So one day, the dad comes home, and he noticed that his baby girl's hair is cut. Now, Emani had really long hair. She would put ribbons and bows and barrettes in it, and she, you know, just really loved doing her hair. And Tiffany cut it. She cut this baby's completely. She cut this. I'm sorry. I'm so upset. I can't even get my words out. That's just how frustrating. I try not to let stories like this get under my skin, but when it's about children, all that goes out the window. So the dad is just like, oh, you cut her hair because she was being bad, and just kind of brushed it off. This is your baby. Why are you letting this woman treat her like, even if she was her maternal mother, it still should not be going on like this. Come on, Dad, you have to wake up. Use your brain. This is your baby girl. At the end of the day, when this woman, if she ever decides to pick up and leave you high and dry and take everything you own, all you have left is your DNA, and that is meaning your children. But moving forward, so he does nothing about his wife cutting his daughter's hair. He goes back to work like nothing's going on. And then one of the baby girl's aunts, her dad's sister, sees them at the park, and she's like, why is Emani's hair cut? What happened to all her hair? Did it fall out? No. The stepmom say, no, it didn't fall out. I cut it. She was being a brat, so I cut it. She wouldn't do what I say. She wouldn't stay in her room. She wouldn't have a seat, so I cut her hair. Bad girls don't deserve hair. If I was an auntie, I would have ate her Adam's apple out. For real. Adam's apple would have been against the wall, sliding. Just, yeah, streaks. But no one did anything. Come on. These are all the warning signs. Come on, adults. Like, we've been children before. So we went through the teenage stages and the adult stages. Come on. Someone has got to see something enough to be able to say something. So Yeah, so the little girl goes home, and in the meantime, in between time, she still has to go to school. The teachers are noticing that her hair is cut, so but the teachers are writing things down. They got their logs out. Kudos to these teachers. These teachers, they were the police officers and the CPS and the parents in this whole story, because her teachers, they did the most. They did the most telling. They did the most snitching. Thank you for snitching, teachers. So the teachers noticed that her hair is cut, noticing that Emani, she's getting thinner and thinner. And so the teacher is just like, you know what? Emani, she's not handing in her homework. Let me just ask her about her homework. So she asks Emani, she's like, Emani, she pulls her to the side. Emani, is everything okay? And Emani, she's kind of, nonchalant and like not really want to tell her because she's afraid. Like, last time I told you something, I got beat. So I really don't want to say anything. So she just brings up her homework. Emani, you haven't been handing in your homework. I'm gonna have to send a note home with your dad. And so immediately when she says that about sending a note home, Emani just freaks out. Please don't send a note home. Please, I'm gonna get into so much trouble. And the teacher, she just started bawling because she's just like, this baby is in this abusive home, and every time they remove her, they just keep sending her back. The daddy won't go let the baby live with the grandma, but this is what this baby is going through. So the teacher didn't say anything this time out of fear that something might happen to this little girl when she goes home. So, Tiffany, she gives her husband a call. Amon, he's at probably his second shift, probably just not even thinking about his daughter and what could possibly be going on with her at home. He's there doing his job, and then Tiffany calls him, and she's like, oh my goodness, come home quick. Amani, she's in the tub. She's having a seizure. And so any parent who really loves their child would have dropped everything, probably even forgot to clock out, because that's the last thing on their mind. Went through every stop sign, went through every red light, had the police chasing them there just so they can hurry up and already have EMS there on the scene. Like, yes, I'm going to take you through a high-speed chase so that way I don't have to worry about calling the ambulance. Y'all going to bring them because y'all chasing me. So, but he doesn't do that. He has like 6 more hours left of his shift, and he continues to finish his shift at his job. That's why like, I don't know who to be more mad at, the dad or the stepmom or the CPS or the courts with this, because it's like, who do you be mad at? All of them. Send them all to hell, right? So the dad finally comes home after finishing his job that doesn't make him rich. Looks in the tub and sees his baby in there, and she's literally in seizure. In and out of seizure. She's unresponsive. She's going to the potty on herself, and he tries to sit her up, and then he's just like, Tiffany, we have to call the police. And then she's just like, no, we're not going to call the police. Do you know if I call the police, if you call the police, they're going to take me to jail? Do you remember I'm on probation for 5 years? Let's just lie and say that she ran away. And the dad was like, but this is my baby. What do we do? And then she's like, well, what about your other 2 babies? So you're just gonna leave them? They're gonna be in the system. They're not just gonna lock me up. They're gonna lock you up. They're gonna blame everything on me. She's just like, Emani is used to being a rebellious child. Let's just say she ran away. And the dad, he agrees and takes his ass back to work. Finishes a whole shift, comes home, take his daughter out of the tub, put her in the bedroom. Now, remind you, she's in and out of seizure, so she's unresponsive. This baby is on her way to heaven. They're not doing anything about it. This coward, the daddy, and mine, this coward goes and go get some baby milk, some dry infant milk, and some water in a spoon and try to give her a liquid diet. At least this is what he tells the court after all the shit hits the fan. Try to feed her some baby milk. But of course she can't receive it because she's basically comatose. She's unconscious. She's on her way out because of y'all. So That doesn't work. He leaves and he goes back to work, to his second job. So every single day this is going on. Now remind you, in the meantime, in between time, while she's laying in this bed, she's wetting herself, she's not eating, she's just slowly dying and slowly just wasting away. And in between these days, they transfer her body, you know, from like rooms to room and whatever, which I don't know what's that gonna solve. But then eventually, after that 6th day of her being in these states, in these unrecessive states or whatever, Tiffany ends up calling the dad while he's at his job. Now this is 6 days later after she done started being unconscious and whatnot. She calls him and then she's just like, Emani's dead. And the dad does not drop everything after he hear his wife tell him that his daughter is dead. He does not drop everything. He finishes out his shift. He finishes out his shift and then he comes home. And then he begins to say, now we have to call the police. We have to do something about this. And then again, Tiffany, the devil, gets in his ear. Babe, you can't do this. You know, they're going to send us to jail. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your kids. They're going to give us the electric chair. He listens to her. And he just wraps his baby up in a blanket and just leave her there. Goes back to work. And his baby's dead body's just in this room for days. Now, eventually, he figured we have to do something with her body. And we'll just tell the police eventually and all our family that she ran away. Now, this is their plan. So, now, this daddy, he's caught on camera in this store getting a trash can, Dutch tape, lighter fluid, charcoal, the works, whatever he needs, even gloves, so he can burn his baby girl up. His baby girl now. Someone who's named after him. His name is Emani and her name is Emani. She has his last name, everything. Look like him. But he buys a trash can to be able to stuff her body in. Him and his wife now, and set her ablaze. And that's what they did. Now, because rigor mortis has set in, her body is stiff. So now they're having to break this baby's joints and bend her and move her like she's some freaking baby doll. And just so she can fit, and I even hate to say this, just so she can be able to fit in the trash can. Now, they pack up their 2 little babies, which is Emani's younger siblings now. They throw Emani in the trash can. Now she's in the back of the truck, in the back of the pickup truck. And the 2 siblings, they're inside of the car, in the truck with their parents. Now, these are babies, so they don't know that their sibling is in this trash can, which this is where she shouldn't be. She's supposed to be somewhere playing, right? Living her best life. But no, she's dead and in a trash can with lighter fluid and charcoal poured all over her innocent little body, waiting to be set ablaze by the people who supposed to love her first. So they take her out to the desert, and this is what they do. They set the can on fire. They set her on fire for hours and hours. They sit there and they watch this baby burn. But this doesn't cremate her body. Her body is still in one piece. I don't know who told them that you can cremate a body with that little amount of heat, but obviously, I mean, look at the type of stuff that they did to the girl anyway, so obviously they were dealing with some type of mental something. I'm not certified to diagnose anybody, but I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to tell when something isn't right or someone is a little off, because that's not okay. You know, and I also believe in devils too. I honestly believe that the war that we cannot see played a part in that as well. In anything that is unholy or unclean or not of God himself. At least the God that I serve and the God that I love. But moving forward, so they noticed that the body isn't making any changes. There's no ashes. She's still all in one hole. And so they put the fire out. They wait till the can cool and they put the trash can in the back of the truck again. They go home. The dad proceeds to go back to his job. Now, remind you that his baby girl is still in the back seat. So he's driving around with his daughter's burned remains in the back of his truck. And he goes to work, and now it's just eating at him. It's eating at him, which it should. Which it should. Yes, it should eat you alive and leave nothing left. So he goes and he tells one of his co-workers, look, this is what happened, but Tiffany told me not to call the police. And his friend is like, what? Are you freaking nuts? You better call the police or I will. So immediately the police are called. And when the police are called, Amon, he's willingly letting the police know, this is what happened. My daughter, she's in the truck, in the trunk of my truck. And the police is just like, he's got to be a Looney Tune. But as soon as that police officer take that lid off that can, baby, yes, they automatically put his ass against the truck. Oh, no, it's a wrap. Your ass is grass. Take him to jail. They go looking for Tiffany. Tiffany didn't fled. She done went to her mama house. She done picked her 2 kids up and went to her mama house, dropped her kids off to her mama, was like, deuces. But before she left, her mom is like, Tiffany, you have to turn yourself in. You have to turn yourself in. You have to let them know what happened, you know. But Tiffany ain't trying to hear that. But eventually, they end up getting with Tiffany. And yes, that's when all the buildings, all the rooftops and everything and the truths and stuff start coming out, and more details and eerie news about this little baby's traumatic experience started coming out. Now, I hate it. Like, it's hard for me to do these stories, but it's happening. Unfortunately, abuse and neglect is happening to children all over the world. Each and every second I say a word, neglect is happening to a child. There's children being held in sex trafficking rings, children being abused and tormented by their parents, their siblings, their spousal abuse, marital abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse. There's all type of abuse, but any type of abuse hurts, and it has some type of negative impact on your person. So as people, we have to try our damnness. I mean, Noah didn't build an ark in one day. No one is expecting anyone. Don't believe that saying no one can change. I believe everyone is possible to change, because if I didn't believe that, I would be saying that there will be no hope for me or my soul. I'm not perfect. I have to repent umpteen times a day. Because I didn't come from a perfect lifestyle. None of us did. That's why Adam and Eve took a bite of the forbidden fruit in the beginning and ended all of that. And now we all have the gift of knowledge. But it's up to us to be able to use those superpowers and open our mouth and say something if we see something. Okay? We're nosy about everything else. Why not be nosy about the important things? So, with that being said, that's my story today. Until next time, join me on Crime, Mystery, and Mayhem. Thanks, like and subscribe, and have a blessed day.
Emotional part of today's was when the jurors heard testimony from the lead investigator and the medical examiner about Moss and her husband, Iman, allegedly calculated every part of Imani's abuse and death. The father took a plea deal to avoid the death penalty and testified against his wife yesterday.
11 Live's Latasha Givens was in the courtroom. Latasha, we cannot forget this case is about a 10-year-old little girl. It had to be so hard to hear that testimony today.
It certainly was, Cheryl and Jeff. There were details about the case that jurors were hearing for the very first time, like the process of the autopsy and what the medical examiner actually found. Some of those details are simply too graphic to share on air, and they certainly evoked emotion with a lot of the jurors and mostly everyone inside the courtroom. But before the medical examiner took the stand today, the lead investigator in the case was up first, talking about some of the very first interviews with Emani Moss, Imani's father. Here are some more details about that. The lead investigator talked about some of the first interviews with Iman's father. He stated he knew Iman was lying from the beginning when he said his daughter died after swallowing a chemical, and from there his story kept changing. The investigator says Iman was consistent about one thing, and that was his wife. He was trying to cover up for Tiffany. The investigator then describes Tiffany as calm and polite when she was arrested, but says her actions were cold and calculating. As part of the evidence, the investigators say they uncovered security video taken just one day after Imani died, proving how they tried to cover up her death.
We determined that Imani had died in different bedding, was wrapped up in that bedding, and then the next day after she died, Tiffany went and bought new sheets for that bed and kept the bed and made the bed up.
Imani's behavior in your classroom, was she ever disrespectful
for Monday
in your
morning,
classroom?
and we'll be out here
Never.
again bringing you the very latest details.
What about her
Latasha, Quincy County, thank you.
obedience to you? In other words, was she ever defiant or disobedient where you had to take disciplinary action?
No, the only, she was precious. It was a blessing to have her in my classroom. She, the only issue we had was having her homework completed on a regular basis. She had difficulty completing her homework. The only outburst that I ever had was she cried because we had these behavior sheets that we had to write on, just to keep a record, and I was going to write down that she didn't complete her homework, and she cried, and I told her it would be okay.
Those type of sheets, did those go home with the child for their parents to see?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say that the only type of schoolwork that she had trouble was just getting back to school with her homework completed?
Yes.
When we talk about what happened in the classroom and her doing her work in the classroom, was she able to perform her work and her schoolwork during the day just fine?
Yes, she was.